I had a message like 2 weeks ago from a guy. He was like, my anxiety's bad. And when I'm on steroids, I feel like it's really, really bad. It's crippling. I don't want to leave the house. I'm like, this sport's not for you.
Does that not sound like Mike Israetel? I know it's not Mike Israetel talking, but does Mike Israetel not exhibit the exact same symptoms? And Fouad in this case is saying, look, people like that, they shouldn't be competing. They should be retiring.
If I had to bet on it, I would be like, you're doing yourself a complete disservice by going into bodybuilding if your primary concern is your health.
I could end the video right there. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're caring about your health and you're trying to be a bodybuilder.
People are like, oh, the steroids are killing people. I'm like, no, it's not the steroids necessarily. Your body's not meant to be 300 pounds of muscle.
And so is it in fact the steroids or is it in fact the muscle? Well, you wouldn't have got all that muscle without the steroids. And so I believe it's the steroids. You're not going to be 300 pounds of muscle if you're 100% natural. And so I do in fact believe that it's the steroids. Your heart was not made to pump blood to 300 pounds of muscle, fat, whatever. The bigger you are, the less long you're likely going to live. You don't see men who weigh 425 pounds living well into their 80s, 90s, and so on.
And I think a lot of bodybuilders know this. Like, they're not stupid. I think no matter how you slice it, you're taking some years off your life.
And so here's the thing. Bodybuilders don't care because they're on steroids. They can't make rational decisions. Mike Israetel himself said that he can't feel normal human emotions. When he's on steroids, he doesn't know what to feel. He thinks of violence all the time. He has crippling anxiety. He remembers liking looking at, for example, forests, the ponds, and so on, but he doesn't feel it right now.
Any ideas on how some of the most recent people passed away?
All I can say for sure is steroid use will accelerate or amplify anything you already have going on in your body.
And so Fouad doesn't want to speculate on the cause of death of many of his bodybuilding friends and so on, but what he is saying is, look, whatever you have, whatever's going wrong in your body, it's going to amplify it. And so instead of, for example, living till 80 years of age, maybe you're going to live till 70, maybe only 60. And so it's important to realize that you can't just abuse steroids and expect to live a long and healthy life. It is doing damage to your body.
I would tell you, I'm at 100 right now.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
You're off everything?
Yeah.
And so Fouad's blood work right now, 100 nanograms per deciliter. And they're basically saying, you're really off everything? He's like, everything. He's not on bodybuilder TRT. He's not on any TRT. Fouad, he has no reason to lie. And so why would I not believe him? He's been like this for 5 months. He's taking nothing. His testosterone levels are 100. That is in the tank, in the toilet. When I was off of everything, my testosterone levels were at 47 and 49. They made me get tested a couple of times before prescribing me HRT. Now listen, if you're experiencing fatigue, mental fog, lack of clarity, insomnia, and so on, you want to get your testosterone levels checked, you can click on the link in the description. I partnered up with Transcend. They have medical doctors that can prescribe testosterone. Also peptides, whatever it is that you need. These doctors will do their best to make sure that you do so in a healthy fashion.
And it's not because I'm like, oh, I want to be super healthy. It's because I don't want to do any more shots. I'm like, I just don't want to do any more shots.
And so I don't know why it's so difficult. Fouad Abiad, when he was retired, was supposed to do 1 shot a week. 1 shot a week. I fully believe that during his contest prep for many years, perhaps decades, he was probably doing a shot or maybe even more every single day. He's now retired, 1 shot a week. Probably takes 2 minutes. He would put the shot on the table and not do it. Just forget about it. Then a month would go by and he'd start feeling like garbage. He'd say, I better take the shot. And so his testosterone levels would go up and then they would crash up and down, going through the roller coaster of emotions. All because he couldn't do 1 shot a week.
I was doing 1 shot a month and I was basically just, my test levels were going like this. And as I felt them go like this, I'm like, okay, time to do another shot. Then I noticed 3 months would go by and I'm like, why am I even doing this?
And so here's what Fouad could have done. Now, testosterone comes with various esters. For example, test suspension, you literally have to do it once or twice every single day. Test prop, likely every other day. Test enanthate or cypionate or sustanon, probably twice a week. And the reason for that is because the testosterone is released at a different rate. It depends on the half-life of the testosterone. But if he only wanted to do 1 shot every single month, 1 shot a month, he could have chosen test undecanoate. Also, Testosterone would have been a great choice. They have a very long half-life. And so if you only wanted to do one shot a month, he could have done testosterone undecanoate. It would have been a very slow release of testosterone. Very, very slow release of testosterone. Not the ones with peaks and valleys like test propionate or test suspension, but one with a very slow release. And so why would he not just do HRT at a low dose and do one shot a month? Literally, it would have been as simple as that. He could have sent a message to Coach Greg, said, hey, I don't want to do a shot all the time. I forget. Is there anything I can take to do a shot once a month? I would have said test undecanoate. Very easy answer I could have provided faster than last time. Remember, I've done consults. I've coached thousands of athletes. I know all about this stuff.
100's below normal.
But you feel great.
I feel great. I feel fine. I still train my ass off.
But listen, he says he feels great. He's doing fine. He doesn't have mood swings. And so why not stay off? HRT is not for everyone. You treat the person, not the number. Despite the fact that his testosterone are very low, indicating he needs HRT, he says he feels fine. And so why would he bother to take HRT? I don't think he needs to.
Are you doing anything like in supplementation of like a TRT?
I'm doing nothing.
Nothing? Damn.
No hormone, anything.
Now listen, if you don't want to use HRT prescribed by a doctor, perhaps you don't want to inject, you just don't want to bother, there are supplements that can help. For example, G-Test and or 3-Test, natural way to increase testosterone. If you're interested in a natural test booster, and these are not the test boosters of old, Andrew Huberman on the Joe Rogan podcast said you can improve your testosterone levels by 200 to 400 nanograms per deciliter. And so imagine if Fouad were to use G-Test and increase his natural testosterone levels from 100 to 300. He says he feels good now, but imagine how much better he could feel at 300 nanograms per deciliter. Interested in G-Test? Code Greg, 15% off.
How much of it could be mental?
I know it's totally not mental.
Okay.
So I will tell you this. If I was to start doing like a shot a week right now, I would look totally different.
I totally agree with him. I'm only on 140 milligrams of test a week, and I guarantee I look significantly better than if I were taking nothing. If I stopped taking testosterone for 5 months like Fouad, I'm certain I would lose a significant amount of muscle. And so Fouad, he doesn't care. He feels good. He doesn't need to have the physique he once had. He's not competing. And so good for you, Fouad.
So I started doing a shot a week, and I noticed I was just like edgier. I wasn't like as calm.
And so for Fouad, one of the reasons he doesn't take HRT at all is because when he did in fact take shots, he would feel more edgy. He was more anxious. He didn't feel as good. And so without HRT, with lower levels of testosterone, he's more calm. He's more relaxed. He feels better. Feels more like himself.
I didn't feel like calm and relaxed. And I hate that feeling because I had that feeling for 20 years as a bodybuilder. And I'm like, I don't want to like that.
And so good for Fouad to recognize that he is better off without steroids. He remembers what it once was. He doesn't want to feel, doesn't want to live like that any longer.
Oh, do you miss being 300 pounds? Do you miss being on like grams of steroids? I'm like, only for the 1 hour in the gym. Every other aspect of my life sucked.
Those of you contemplating steroids, you need to know about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Obviously, you know the good. Everyone talks about the good, the pumps, the muscles, the size. But what about the bad? The anxiety, the stress, the arguments, not feeling good within your own skin.
I had a message like 2 weeks ago from a guy. He was like, my anxiety's bad. And when I'm on steroids, I feel like it's really, really bad. It's crippling. I don't want to leave the house. I'm like, this sport's not for you.
Does that not sound like Mike Israetel? I know it's not Mike Israetel talking, but does Mike Israetel not exhibit the exact same symptoms? And Fouad in this case is saying, look, people like that, they shouldn't be competing. They should be retiring. And so Mike Israetel, my opinion, we have Coach Greg, we have Fouad saying you should retire.
I saw a life coach for probably 2 or 3 years. So we talked and you can't beat it. I mean, those talks help me now in life.
And so those sessions with the life coach back then didn't help him. He was on steroids. He wasn't able to think clearly. But now that he's off the steroids, he remembers those messages, those lessons, and it's affecting him positively to this day.
It's the same thing with anxiety. If you're an anxious person, it's just going to multiply it. My 20 years, when I look back at it, it was a long, like my wife was very patient. There was a lot of dinners that we got up and left in the middle of dinner.
And so considering he had so much anxiety to go to a restaurant, he had to go outside in a t-shirt in the ice cold of Canada and the snow, and he had steam coming off his head and so on. This was the anxiety. He went through that for 12 years. Is this really the life that you want? Many people, they're not thinking about this. They're thinking, hey, I don't want to get gyno. I don't want to have acne. There's a lot more to it than that. It's the mental. The physical, it's one thing. Some people won't even notice. But what about the mental?
So, and the same thing, and it's even worse when I get people messaging me and they're depressed. They're like, my depression's so bad. I can't get out of bed. I'm like, that's even more scary.
And so imagine if you're a person who's depressed, you're already depressed. Now, me, never had these experiences, but trust me, I've had friends who did. They said, look, when I go off cycle, I'm thinking about ending things, about not being here anymore. This is serious. I'm not making this shit up. I'm not trying to downplay the dangers of performance-enhancing drugs. They go off cycle and they just feel like it's not worth it. They're thinking about ending things. This is horrendous. And I did, in fact, have one friend who did, in fact, end his life. He's not with us anymore. He was abusing steroids. He was competing. He's not here. And I know more than one person this has happened to. It is a living nightmare. Be careful of the choices that you make.
So people need to think these things through. The drugs are not just going to affect your kidney and liver and heart. They're going to affect your brain too.
And so I can preach as much as I can. I can tell you what I think. I can tell you, hey, this is how you should feel. This is what you should think. It's not going to matter. If I message somebody in private and say, hey, it's Coach Greg, I'm warning you about the dangers of steroids, it's not going to make any difference. They're not going to listen to me. That's why I'm making these videos. It's for everybody to learn. Oftentimes, I won't be able to save those who are already on it. They can't think clearly. But those of you who are thinking about using steroids, you have a clear mind right now. Please consider the dangers, the damages that will be done if you decide to use steroids. And if you're not sure, don't do it.
What does it take to get to the level that you got to?
Like nothing could have stopped me.
And so Fouad was so into his career as a bodybuilder, nothing could have stopped him. There's no way he was stopping. I fully believe, and I've seen this many times before, and I've coached these athletes, they won't stop. They'll show me their blood work, and I'm telling you, it's some of the worst blood work I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, you have to go off. But they're saying, hey, I hired you to coach me. And I'm saying, as your coach, you have to go off. You are going to die. I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. And so I designed a cycle that I think is as healthy as possible. It's still way more than I want them to do, but they did hire me, and I'm thinking, well, they're not going to listen to me. They're going to do whatever. And so I'm designing them a cycle. They then use that cycle, but guess what? After the cycle is over, they said, I just doubled whatever you told me. Whatever you said, I took twice as much. What can we do about this? I have no clue. I have no answer. People don't care. They're about to have a heart attack. They don't care. Once you're addicted to performance-enhancing drugs, and perhaps it's not a physical addiction, but it is in fact a mental one, you can't stop. You need to get away from it. And so oftentimes people will not stop. They'll compete as a bodybuilder. They won't stop. They'll keep pushing it until the doctor finally says, look, it's going to end you. And even at that time, many won't even stop. And for me, how was I able to stop? I switched my focus from competing as a bodybuilder to competing in cycling. I changed that focus from one thing and pivoted to another. And so that same drive, enthusiasm, passion, I put it into something healthier. I don't need to use and abuse performance-enhancing drugs to race faster on the bike. I'm on HRT prescribed by my doctor, and I can take GO2 Max, Ecti Builder, Turk Builder, pre-workouts, and so on, and I'm doing amazing. Am I a pro? Of course not. I still do I still win some of my bike races, but I don't need to be the best in the world. I just want to be better than myself. I want to improve. I want to give it my best. I stop comparing myself to other people, and I compare myself to myself. Comparison is the thief of joy. If you continue to compare yourself, you're never going to be satisfied.
If you don't have the genetics, you don't have the genetics. I think people have a hard time saying that to people. Like, oh no, you can do it with enough hard work. I'm like, no, you can't.
I am going to say the exact same thing. What do you think this guy needs to be better? He wants to be an IFBB pro. I say, hey, look, he needs different parents. He needs to travel back in time and get better genetics from better parents. Sometimes you just can't be the best no matter what. No matter how hard you work, no matter how determined you are, you can't simply be the best. If you want to be the best doctor, surgeon, lawyer in the world, and you're below average intelligence, you can't just outstudy it. You can't study harder than last time and be a genius. It doesn't work like that. If you have below average intelligence and you want to be a doctor, sorry, it's not going to happen. If you have below average genetics and you want to be an IFBB pro, you can't just take more drugs and think, I'll get huge because I'm going to take all the drugs in the world. It doesn't work like that.
No matter what it is, chase your dream. But when it affects your health, you have to really weigh out, like, am I going to be a good pro? Am I going to be able to make money? Or is this just something that is going to be damaging to me one day?
Can you turn pro? If you do turn pro, are you going to make a lot of money from this? Is it going to be healthy? Are you going to live a long and healthy life? The answer is no. And for Mike Israetel, if he does in fact turn pro, is he going to be a good pro? Is he going to make more money from it? Does he need more money? Does he even need any money? And so why do it? All the money in the world is not worth taking 10 years off of your life. Because if a doctor came up to me and said, Greg, I got some bad news. You have 1 week to live. How much would you pay to add another year? I'm saying all the money I have. Whatever I got, all of it. If I had $1 billion, $1 billion. And so ask yourself, is it worth it? If you're taking 10 years off of your life to be a professional bodybuilder, is it really worth it? If you would make $1 billion more from being a pro, you would trade that $1 billion to have those 10 years back. And so the answer is, of course, it's not worth it.
Unless that person has a very, very clear vision, like, hey, I know this is going to hurt me and I don't care. Then that's up to you. It's your life. You do what you want.
See, the problem, Fouad, is during that time when you're on those steroids, you can't make rational decisions. You don't experience proper human emotions. So you're only going to be able to make those rational decisions after you retire, after you go off the steroids, after you become normal. And so how can people make these decisions? In the moment, they're thinking it's worth it. But then once they sober up, it's not worth it. That's why you don't sign important documents, court documents, and so on while you're drunk or high, because you can't make those rational decisions. The same applies when you're abusing performance-enhancing drugs. And so everyone, is my message now clear? Do you understand what I've been doing? Do you understand what I've been standing for? Don't use steroids. Now, if you do want to train natural, of course, harder than last time, I'd suggest you get to my website. If you don't have any money at all, that's okay. You can get the free diet and training program. Join the 300,000 plus newsletter subscribers. And if you're interested in the cookbooks, the Circle diet book, the training books in PDF or hard copies, head over to my website. We have various price points for everyone. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, like the video if you liked it, and watch one of those 2 bloops. And of course, code Greg, 15% off. Interested in training plans by me and my team, all the supplements, the Harder Than Last Time clothing line, everything. Get over to the website. And until next time, I am out.